Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very productive study vlog where we're going to be working on my PhD dissertation. Now, if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Kaelyn. I am a PhD candidate in History and African American Studies at Yale University. I'm currently living in London, and this week I am spending some time in Oxford for a little writing retreat. And today was my final day working in the libraries, so it was time to officially lock in and get some serious words on the page. However, here on this channel, we do things a little bit differently. I'm going to be taking you into my process, talking about the research, talking about what I do as my practice when I'm writing. So first and foremost, we need to pick out an excellent playlist. I've been really loving this Study Like Oppenheimer playlist while working on my PhD. And then I set aside myself 45 minutes to work on reading this particular book. Now, this is Craven's The Dissolution of the Virginia Company. And it is one of the most important texts on the Virginia Company's operations, its investors, and specifically its relationship with the crown, or more specifically, King James I. I was working through this book a little bit yesterday, but I wanted a refresher before I started working on the writing. Another thing I wanted to do was find specific references to the years and specific figures and their actions, because he makes a specific argument about the political involvement of Sir Edwin Sandys and Sir Thomas Smith and their relationship with James I, and how this ultimately led to the dissolution of the Virginia Company, rather than the local politics that is often discussed by scholars of colonial Virginia, such as Edmund Morgan. You see, this isn't just about word counts. We're also going to be learning a little bit about history today, folks. And the next step after a bit of reading is actually to work in my timeline. So I have a document within my Scrivener file, which is dedicated to mapping out the different events, different things that happen throughout time, not only with the Virginia Company, but the Virginia colony in general. So my timeline actually begins with the Poor Laws in 1601, and ideally will end in about 1705 with the Virginia slave codes. Now, I'm just adding little bits and pieces, some quotes, and also trying to make sure that I also keep a footnote and citation of where I'm pulling all of this information, because you'll see that it is incredibly important to do so when you need to refer back. One of the things that I often see in these productive study with me vlogs is just to focus on this linear idea of word count. They show some of the ups and the downs of the emotional impact of getting words on the page, but today I really want to highlight the process and how it is a non-linear progression in the way that we write. Now, for example, I started with reading, then I moved to adding some notes to my timeline. I'm going to go back and actually do a little bit of reflection and some note taking on the things that I just need to sort out, that I just need to organizing my ideas visually before I can actually begin writing. Now, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to my very special dissertation diary. This is something that I keep in my overall carry that I take with me everywhere. It's my Louise Carmen notebook. And inside I have my dissertation diary. Now, this is just a standard notebook that I add some stickers to. It's nothing that special. However, what is special is that it is a place where I trap all of my ideas. It's like a spider's web where I just allow things to filter through that are on my mind. This can be my emotional relationship to my dissertation. It can also be trying to work out the relationship between two historical subjects. It can be trying to figure out what's happening in England and within the politics of the Virginia Company at the same time as things are happening over in the colony. And that is how I can begin thinking about the way I want to structure my writing. And that is when we open the document and we start typing. For the longest time, I've really struggled with this moment with the Virginia Company between 1618 and 1619, when Sir Edwin Sandys is actually brought in as the treasurer. And my question was essentially why? And because I had this incredible resource of Craven's Dissolution of the Virginia Company, I just felt really primed to begin writing about it. So I got about 800 words that morning, and then it was time to take a break. I went out to the covered market over in Oxford to meet up with Kate and get some delicious sushi. It had been a really hot week, so something nice and cool and light just sounded perfect for that little afternoon pick-me-up. We also got a strawberry matcha, which was just a little jolt of caffeine that I needed. I didn't feel like a cup of coffee was going to serve me at this point. I thought it was just going to make me anxious and jittery. then it was time to head back to the library. I put my phone on airplane mode while I'm in the library, just that way I get no notifications and there's no distractions while I'm trying to work. So that way I can really lock in. At first, I begin with some of the writing that I had been working on that morning. So that initial 800 words, adding an additional paragraph. However, as you'll see, I needed to go back to the text because there was a specific reference that I remember the author making, but stupid me, I did not actually make note of the specific page in my notes. And that is why I'm telling you all, if you take anything from this video, cite where you find information in your notes. It is just so helpful to be able to find the page. I did actually end up finding it. I kind of knew where in the book it was, but it just added, another 10 minutes of frustration trying to sort it out. So I just continued writing this section on this moment of transition in power during the kind of 1618 to 1619 politics within the Virginia Company. And then I hit a crash out point. I was just so mentally exhausted after working on this one section. And that is one thing that I will say is really challenging about writing and doing research as a PhD student, is just how much brain energy it takes up. However, it was a really productive morning and we ended up getting about 1,300 words written by this point. Now, if you'll allow me to nerd out for a minute, let's talk about 1619 and why I find this particular year so fascinating in this chapter of my dissertation. So this is the year that Sir Edwin Sandys is appointed to the Treasury. And this is immediately after the report has been published and sent to the investors, basically saying, all the money that you sent us, all the money that you've committed to the Virginia Company, it's gone. The company is essentially on the edge of bankruptcy. And so Sir Edwin Sandys is the one who is appointed to save them. He establishes a series of policies, one of which includes sending destitute children to Virginia. He petitions the Privy Council, he exchanges letters with the Common Council, and ultimately receives approval to send 100 children from Bridewell Hospital to Virginia. But another thing that's interesting is that Sir Edwin Sandys is a politician. He's not a merchant, he doesn't really have any commercial experience. And so my question is, why is he appointed and why does he enact this policy? How does this idea come about that children should be the ones sent to Virginia? It seems a bit odd, and what I'm doing is exploring this back history, the relationship between Sandys, Sir Thomas Smith, and the others in the Virginia Company in order to suss it out.
Hi, so it's now 4:30, and I'm hitting a natural stopping point for this particular section. So I'm actually going to pack up my things and head over to the Radcam, where Kate is working, because the Fair Harmsworth is closing in about 30 minutes anyway. I kind of feel like I need a little bit of a refresher, maybe a coffee, snack, something like that, in order to keep going for the rest of the evening. But we got 1,700 words today so far, which is pretty freaking phenomenal. So we're going to keep on going. I'm almost done with this one section. We're going to move on to another section and see what we can get done by the time the library is closed today.
This is typically the point in the day when I would call it. I would say that, we've gotten quite a few words on the page, it was really productive, and it's time to call it. However, because it was my last day in Oxford, I really wanted to take advantage of the environment and being with Kate and being in these beautiful libraries. So I just took a little bit of a break with Kate to go get some food just to refuel. I also got a little boba just so that way I could get a little bit of caffeine. But like I said, I didn't want to drink any more coffee and make myself really jittery. However, we did get back into the libraries and continue working. The thing that is not shown, though, is that I was really distracted. I kept picking up my phone. I kept kind of staring at the walls and watching the lighting changing through the library. And I think this is just a sign that my brain was just absolutely dead by this point. However, I was writing a section that I felt really confident about. So even though I had a few hours left, I knew that I wanted to make sure that I used it effectively to get some more words on the page. Now, one way that I do this when I'm really struggling mentally is actually going back to the secondary literature and working on my notes. So I have a notes document. You can watch some of my other videos on note taking and on Scrivener, but ultimately I just copy the quotes over that I think are relevant for citing in my footnotes. And I just do a little bit of that for a while just because it is productive work and it does allow me to engage with the material and with the subject, but it gives my brain a tiny bit of a break before I need to add more words. So we did manage to get more words on the page. I was really proud of myself. We managed to hit 1900 for the day, and then I just tried to continue on. Like I said, I was feeling really distracted, and one thing that I tend to do when I'm feeling distracted is just set short timers. So I was actually doing this in 15-minute sprints. So I would do 15-minute sprint, and then I would take a 10-minute break, and then I would continue on. It's not a standard Pomodoro, but I just knew that my brain wasn't really capable of doing a full 25-minute sprint by this point in the day. And so I just broke it up. But if I just set the timer and just tried to lock in, it really did help as I was trying to add, the final touches on these pages. And I am very happy to report that this day we ended with 2,583 words. What a feat it was. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it was motivating and I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you for watching, friends.